Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and it's time for our Game Week 13 team selection video. The video where I go through my team and look at potential transfers and captaincy options that I have for myself, as well as looking at some potential team news and options. So guys, if you do enjoy this one, drop a like, do subscribe if you are new around here. Let's get started by looking at our Game Week 12 scores. So, Game Week 12 was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting. Obviously, in general, I did pretty well. Most of my players did the business and scored points, particularly in the attacking areas. I mean, defenders and goalkeepers are just not the one this season, or so it would seem. No clean sheets on offer. But the one thing where I've really let myself down on here is going for the differential captain in Watkins. If I captain Salah like a normal person, like a normal human being, then we would be sitting inside the top 100k right now, which is something I am super frustrated with myself at. Dan, why can't you just be normal? Why can't you just captain a normal player? I don't know. But we move on regardless. It is a frustrating one, but the rank drop was not too significant. Down 20,000 places and was still, you know, in a good area, still at a good rank right now. So I'm not too disappointed and I still love my team. So in general, I don't think it's all bad. I'm going to try and keep a little bit of optimism about me, but look, it's a case of what could have been, right? Which is annoying, but hey, we move on, and that's exactly what we will do. Still, I was like circling around the top 100k. I really want to get in there, so yeah, let's try and do that this week. Okay, so for my Game Week 13 team, we've got one free transfer, and we've got a little bit in the bank here as well, 1.1 million, which I'm pretty happy about. You know, we can invest that somewhere and try and improve this team. So let's start off in goal with Areola. Burnley is the fixture. It's a pretty good fixture, but in general, are we expecting clean sheets from anyone? No, not this week, particularly this week, where, you know, the fixtures in general are pretty tough this week. You know, the big teams are playing the big teams, so in general, you know, even when a player like Areola for West Ham has an opportunity against Burnley, I'm just not convinced. West Ham are just not keeping clean sheets. But like, who is better right now? Very, very few defenders or goalkeepers. So at the end of the day, we'll just stick with Areola and see what happens. Use our money in other areas of the pitch. In defense, we have got Trippier, who is a little bit expensive. I'm really hoping that Newcastle can get back to those clean sheet ways with a home game against Chelsea. I'm not totally convinced that's going to happen once again. So yeah, again, not feeling too optimistic about my defenders. But hey, look, Trippier's got good attacking potential there, and if they can squeeze this clean sheet out of this game, which I don't know if it's going to happen or not, then, you know, we're going to be looking at bonus points. But you've got to be in it to win it, and Trippier is definitely a player with high points potential no matter who he plays. Next up, we've got Matty Cash, which is an interesting one. He is flagged right now with the yellow, very, very cool original Dorito of Death, which is concerning for some people. It's not really concerning to me, to be honest. I'm not worried about this one. The reason why Cash is flagged is basically because he obviously had a minor shoulder injury a few weeks ago. He chose to withdraw from the Poland squad because of that, and as such, the FPL website has for some reason decided to flag him, but I'm not concerned. I'm pretty sure he is going to start in this game week. Now, a lot of people are looking at removing Cash from their FPL teams. I understand why. It's a tough fixture, and Cash has not been getting, you know, any points recently, really, but look around the defenders right now. Nobody is getting points, so is it really worth a transfer? I'm not totally sure. What I should say about Cash, when I was kind of doing research of whether I should move him to someone else, whether I could move him, any other options that I have there, is basically Cash, maybe it's not quite as bad as we think. Aston Villa's defensive numbers are actually not that bad. They're kind of tracking around the same levels as Liverpool and Brentford, who we would consider aren't too bad defensive. They have kept a couple of clean sheets, so it does suggest that maybe Aston Villa have been a little bit unlucky. Cash also in away fixtures seems to do slightly better as well, taking on a more attacking role. So there are some points in the favour of Cash, but ultimately he hasn't been getting points recently. It's a case of whether you think you can transfer him to someone who you are confident is going to get points in future game weeks. And for me, I don't know if I can do that. So Cash remains in the team for now, but definitely a player you can consider removing. And finally, we've got Gabriel, a player I'm not really worried about his minutes. Brentford is not a great fixture, but hey, you could get something out of this. Liverpool managed to keep a clean sheet against Brentford last game week despite the odds, and maybe Arsenal can do it too, because Arsenal still are tracking as the strongest defence in the Premier League. And really one of the, if not the only defense in the Premier League right now that I have any interest in. So I'm happy to be invested in them at least a little bit through Gabriel, and maybe it comes off this week, maybe it doesn't, but at least in future game weeks, I think Gabriel is one of the few players who actually might give us some clean sheet points there as well. Moving into midfield, we have got Mo Salah. He plays his toughest game of the Premier League season against Man City away, which is not ideal, but what should be said is that the Liverpool versus Man City games are often pretty good. They're often pretty high-scoring games. You know, goals can happen in these games, so they're not the tight affairs that we often see in other big teams facing against each other. Sometimes we do see a lot of goals in these games. So Salah, if anyone's going to score for Liverpool, it's going to be one of Salah or Darwin Nunez, right? So, in general, I'm not massively convinced by any Liverpool player this week, but I think it could be worse. And given the fact that Game Week 13, we have so many big teams playing each other, it's going to be low scoring. I don't think there's too much concern there, and a player I'm happy to have moving forward. We've got Heung-min Son up next, a player who I think I'm more confident in than perhaps most people. A couple of blanks have maybe worried a few people, but I think particularly the blank against Chelsea was super unlucky. The blank against Wolves, you know, Son was just isolated very well by Wolves. I don't think Aston Villa will be able to do the same thing. Aston Villa, particularly when they're playing away from home, do sometimes struggle defensively, particularly when they're playing such a high line. And there will be two teams playing high lines against each other, which could mean that this game is one of the more high-scoring games of this game week, to be honest. So, yeah, Son against Aston Villa and their high line, I think he could do some damage. We've seen before this season where counter-attacking teams have done very, very well against Aston Villa, and I think that could happen again through Heung-min Son. He seems to be perfectly set up for it. Of course, Son is also on penalties with Maddison out, so there's another opportunity to get points there. I don't think Son is done as an FPL asset yet, whether Maddison's in the team or not. You know, there's going to be other players stepping up and creating for Spurs in the future. So, yeah, I still think that Son could do pretty well, and I'm pretty happy to own him for this Aston Villa game. I think he's going to be a big player this week. I really do. Next up, we've got Jared Bowen. This is a tough one. Apparently, he's got some fluid on his knee that needs draining, minor, maybe steroids, maybe a little operation to kind of fix it. We're not sure what the situation with Bowen is yet. I'm waiting for the press conference from West Ham tomorrow to try and get some more information about what the situation is, but right now, I'm not feeling super confident. Before, I was feeling more confident about Bowen, but my confidence is getting worse and worse, and I do think Bowen really could potentially miss Game Week 13, so I am worried about this one. It's unfortunate. I only picked up Bowen last game week. He rewarded me with some points, but really this Burnley game was the one I was excited about, and if Bowen's not available for this Burnley game, we do need to consider what we're going to do with him, to be honest. So yeah, waiting for more information, but that will be a big part of the transfer strategy this week, whether Bowen is going to be available or not. So we'll come back to this one, but we'll move on next to Diaby. I know a lot of people have little confidence in Diaby as well, but like I was saying, I think the Aston Villa Spurs game could be one of the few games that does bring us a lot of FPL points. So Diaby obviously is going to be very effective on the counter-attack against Spurs. Spurs still lacking Van der Ven and Romero in the central defence position, so there is going to be opportunities for the Aston Villa attackers to get something out of this. I really do think that there could be goals on either side, and Diaby, you know, if Aston Villa are going to score against Spurs, you think Diaby is going to be involved. Like, he is playing super high up the pitch. He looks good whenever he is playing, and I like him. I like him as a pick a lot. So he is a player I would quite like to keep over the next couple of game weeks, despite the fact that a lot of people are looking actually to remove him. I quite like Diaby. I think he's got a couple of weeks left. He's probably not a long-term pick. I'm not going to lie about that one. But right now, I'm okay with him. Next up, we've got Cole Palmer. A difficult away game against Newcastle, but I think we'll all admit that now is probably a good time to play this Newcastle team, and Chelsea are showing some form. Palmer has just looked brilliant recently, whether it's penalties or just in open play. He always looks dangerous, whether he's creating or going through to take shots on goal. I like him a lot, and for 5.2 million, I think you really can't go wrong with a player like this. So, yeah, it's a tough game, but we've had tough games before, and Palmer has delivered in each of those. He should remain on penalties until he misses one. That's my personal opinion on that one. I don't think Nkunku is going to take Palmer's penalties away from him straight away, but it probably will happen at some point. But for now, I'm okay with Palmer. I'm happy with him. Like, for this cheap, he's been performing in the big games. Chelsea in general have been performing in the big games. Why not? What is the problem? I'm happy to continue with Palmer. It's no surprise that he is such a popular player to transfer in this game week. I'm going to stick with him. I'm very happy with him. Moving up front, we have got Erling Haaland. Another player who is flagged. Another player I'm not too worried about. So yeah, we did see kind of earlier on in the week that Fabrizio Romano came out and said that Erling Haaland, you know, he didn't play for the second game for Norway just as a precaution. He wants to get, you know, make sure he's very available and fit and feeling good for the Man City game. That seems to be the impression that I've got from all of this. So in a big game against Liverpool, I'm not concerned at all about Haaland starting and playing pretty much the whole game. I think it's going to happen. It's such an important game for Man City. If they beat Liverpool, it's going to be huge in terms of the title race. So yeah, Haaland flagged, but I'm not concerned. And Haaland, again, I know some people think of him as not a big player, who not a big game player, you know, maybe doesn't score against the big teams. Well, you know, people said Haaland's never scored against Liverpool. Well, that's kind of true. He's never scored against Liverpool in the Premier League, but he's only actually played Liverpool in the Premier League once because he was injured for the other game last season. He obviously scored against Liverpool in the Champions League back when he was playing for Salzburg. He scored in the League Cup last season against Liverpool whilst playing for Man City. So, you know, it's a bit of a myth. And we also said the same thing, like Haaland, he's not going to score against Chelsea. He's never scored against Chelsea before. We know what happened last game week, don't we? People said, yeah, I'm not going to captain Haaland or go near Haaland for that Manchester United game. Again, we know what happened there. So I think the idea that Haaland is a small game player is a bit of a myth, and I'm not concerned. It's a home game. It's a huge game. It's a game where we often see goals. Haaland is going to be absolutely fine and fit and available to play. A lot of worries that I think are actually not justified this game week. So I like Haaland for this week a lot. And finally, we've got Ollie Watkins. Similar situation to Diaby. I think this will be an open game. I think there will be opportunities for Aston Villa to score in this game. We know that Aston Villa's attack are just amazing right now. They are phenomenal. So yeah, more of the same, please. Watkins, come on, do the business. You let me down a little bit last game week with the captaincy, particularly the absolute sitter chance that he missed. I couldn't believe it when he missed that chance and the pointless yellow card, but that is in the past. We will calm ourselves and move forward to this Spurs game where I think Aston Villa are more than capable of getting a couple of goals in this game, and it's going to be Watkins, it's going to be Diaby, and it could be Cash as well. So I think there could be a good one. Onto the bench, guys. For me, we've got Turner. Is he even going to play? I don't know. Kabore flagged at the moment. Obviously, he had some issues over the international break. Hopefully, he is getting better as quickly as he can. We've got Mubama, who is interesting. West Ham fans are crying out for Mubama to start in this next game against Burnley, but Danny Ings is probably going to be this guy who starts instead. But without Bowen, without Antonio, maybe Mubama has a chance, and maybe I need to think about playing Mubama or having him as first sub. I don't know. Something to think about that I'm going to keep an eye on over the next 24 hours. And we've got Charlie Taylor against West Ham. West Ham score goals. Do I play Taylor? Probably not. Do I put him higher on my bench? I don't know. In general, I don't think my bench is too bad this game week, all things considered. So maybe I can cover it if things go wrong in my starting 11 and the players are injured or don't play or get rotated. Maybe my bench can actually do something this week, considering that it's a super cheap and weak bench. So there you go, guys. That's my team. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with it. First of all, let's have a look at players that I'd be willing to sacrifice, players that I would actually consider transferring out. And those players are Cash, Bowen, and Diaby. So, yes, I am hoping for a good thing against Spurs, but like I kind of alluded to, I don't think Cash and Diaby are long-term holds in my team. When we look at players like Gabriel and Palmer, you know, you may not expect them to get huge points, you know, Trippier as well. You may not expect huge points this game week, but they are long-term holds that I want in my team long-term. I don't think Cash and Diaby quite fit that same criteria, to be honest. But do I feel like I need to remove these players? Not really. No, I don't feel any strong indication. Diaby, yes, there are some great replacements, like Mbumo would be a great replacement, but Mbumo plays against Arsenal this week. So do I have to pull the trigger on that one this game week? I don't know. Maybe not. We've got Cash. Again, like I was kind of saying earlier, who do I replace him with? Like, I could go to Saliba. That's pretty much it in terms of players I would actually be interested in moving him to. So, not really sure if there's a logical replacement for him. And of course, that leaves us with Jarrod Bowen, who is probably the problem area in my team if he is going to be unavailable, if he's going to be unfit, which is something that I really need to, figure out what's going on there. I don't have the answer right now. I'm not feeling confident right now. So I think Bowen is probably the most likely player I am to removing. But before we say like the transfer options I have, I want to show you my watch list players I would like to bring in, because I think there's also opportunities for me to maybe improve and upgrade my bench. I'm happy with my team value right now, so maybe this is the time, particularly with game week 18, which is going to be a blank game week. Maybe I need to start thinking about upgrading that bench to get a little bit of cover. Now we've got a little bit more money to spend. So let me show you my watch list right now. So these are my transfer targets. In goal, Sanchez is the one goalkeeper I've actually got one eye on at the moment. Thinking about maybe if he could be an improvement on Areola. I'm not really sure. In defense, I spoke about Saliba already. Obviously, he's a great pick, but 5.4 million is quite expensive. And if I was to upgrade Cash to Saliba, it would cost me quite a lot of money because I bought Cash for quite cheap. So my selling price on Cash, I believe, is only like 4.8, 4.9 million, which is not really very much. So it would be a big upgrade there, I guess. I have got Castagna here as a really interesting option that you guys probably did not see coming. But I was looking through my team, particularly in my defense, and looking at where I need cover in my defense. And here is the situation with Castagna. Basically, I need cover for game week 13. You know, if Bowen's not going to be available, or I need to rely on my bench a little bit, I need something for game week 13. I need something for now. After that, I'm looking at my defenders, and we've got Cash, who has difficult fixtures in 15 and 16, and also game week 18, which is going to be the blank game week. I need some cover there. And those 4 game weeks in particular happen to be great for Fulham. So Fulham play Wolves at home in game week 13, Forest at home in game week 15, West Ham at home in game week 16, and Burnley at home in game week 18. So all home games and all games against some of the weaker teams of the Premier League, particularly Wolves, Forest and Burnley, who don't score too many goals. So really actually quite interested in going in on Castagna. Now I know what you're thinking. Fulham, they're terrible defensively, right? Well, I'm not quite sure that is true. We've seen already that Fulham have kept clean sheets against some of the weaker teams. And since game week 5, when Palhinha came back into the team, when Castagna was introduced into the team as well, Fulham's defensive numbers have actually been similar to, you know, your Brentfords and your Liverpools. Their defensive numbers are actually pretty good. And we know with a goalkeeper like Leno, you know, they're going to overperform their expected goals conceded. Leno is going to save more goals than is expected of a normal goalkeeper to save because he's such a good goalkeeper. In fact, looking through the numbers from the last 8 game weeks, since, you know, Palhinha's been starting and Castagna's been in the team, Fulham have actually conceded the same amount of goals as Manchester City. You probably didn't expect to see that. So, over the course of the season, Fulham haven't been a great defence, but most of that was right at the beginning of the season, and maybe that game against Aston Villa as well. But, given the fact that they've had pretty horrible fixtures, I actually think they've been defending quite well. And in those easier fixtures, they've been either keeping clean sheets, or there was that game against Sheffield United where there was a freak own goal by Robinson after, I think it was Diop got injured, right as he had the ball, let Sheffield United go through, and then it was a freak own goal from that. So yeah, I actually think Fulham defensively, they haven't been quite as bad as people are making them out to be. So considering there is a great kind of, for my team personally, there's a great kind of matchup between the game weeks I need a defender and the game weeks where, you know, a player who actually plays for a actually not so bad defense has very good fixtures. I'm just saying, it's an option. I've got Maguire here as an option there as well, but I've spoken about Castagna for so much, we'll whiz through the rest. In terms of midfielders, Saka obviously is always going to be an option, and Bumo could go for him 1 game week early, and I like Eberechi Eze as well. For forwards, Isak is my main forward target right now, but I don't know how to get to him without sacrificing Watkins, and I'm not really willing to do that. And we have got Wood there as well, with our knee set to be out for months. Chris Wood could be the starting striker, and he probably will be the starting striker for Nottingham Forest for the foreseeable future, and he's only 4.9 million. He's already got pretty decent numbers so far this season when he has been on the pitch, but in fairness, he played against Luton, he played against Sheffield United, scored 3 goals in those 2 fixtures, so I don't know, maybe there's something there. I'm not exactly sure. It's definitely an option to kind of improve my bench a little bit and maybe give me some options. Again, Wood, another player, good fixture in game week 13 against Brighton at home, and in game week 18 when we have that blank and I'm going to need to cover my blank players, they've got Bournemouth at home, Nottingham Forest have. So again, 2 good home fixtures for him. These are just players, seemingly random, but actually they fit what I'm looking for very, very well. So those are my transfer targets. Let's move on and see what my options are. So it depends on Bowen, basically. If Bowen is fit, then I'm probably not going to make a transfer. I'll probably just roll it into the next week because, in general, I like my team. For a difficult game week, I think I'm actually set up pretty well, and I like my players for the slightly longer term, other than, you know, Cash and Diaby. But I think we can deal with those problems later on. If Bowen is out for one game week, then we go with plan B. That's going to be trying to cover him for this week, and as well as that, bringing in a player that is going to help me in the long term. And that's going to involve improving my bench. So it will be Mubama out or Kabore out and replacing them with Wood or Castagna, as I just kind of mentioned. And I think that will really improve the strength of my squad in general. And if Bowen is out longer term, that's the only time I would remove him. So that would be replacing him with Mbumo one game week early, but I would get a player that Mbumo's a player I kind of want long term. So it would be a player I'd be happy to bring in as a Bowen replacement. So it really depends, guys. Is Bowen going to be fit? Is he going to be out for one game week or maybe a little bit close to cool? In which case, I'll have to improve my bench. But if Bowen's out for the longer term, that's the only case. If he's out for 2-3 game weeks or more, at that point, I would be looking to remove him. If he's going to be fine after this game week, I will be fine to keep him. I don't think he's a player we need to panic out if it's a small issue. But that will be found out tomorrow in tomorrow's video, I guess. So yeah, like I said, guys, I can't really make a decision right now, so we're going to have to just assume we're rolling with what we've got because it could go either way. But I will give you the full update on Bowen and all of the other players and their kind of playtime prospects, if they're likely to be injured, what the situation is. I'll give updates on all of those players in tomorrow's video where we cover all of the press conferences and more, and we'll look at replacements in more detail as well for all of the injured players. In terms of captaincy, so, it's going to be Haaland. It's going to be Haaland. It's going to be my captain this week. I think he's going to do very well against Liverpool. I'm pretty happy about that one. And vice-captain is going to go on Son, who is a player who I'm super tempted to actually captain ahead of Haaland, but I'm not going to do it because I'm trying to learn my lesson from Game Week 12 and just captain the obvious guy this week at least. So, yes, Haaland captain, Son, vice-captain. That is going to be my team. Let's have a quick look and see what the AI thinks, what Fantasy Football Hub thinks about this team. Okay, guys, so we're on the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool. Of course, if you want to check this tool out, you can actually get the Black Friday deal on Fantasy Football Hub right now, where you can get 30 days free access to the entirety of the premium Fantasy Football Hub tools, which is an insane deal that I've never seen them do before. But look, you've got the next few days, probably until the end of the weekend, to get this deal and get your free month in, because honestly, once you try these tools out, you're not going to want to lose them, I swear. Particularly over this busy, like, December fixture period, it's the perfect time to have that full access to Fantasy Football Hub to give you all of the information and tools you need to help you do well in the fantasy football, because it's going to be a really important time in fantasy football in general. So anyway, guys, looking at my team, we've got a 96% team rating, which is still pretty good. It's pretty reasonable. The AI actually does think I should be benching Cash, but I think that's because he's flagged. It actually thinks that Son is the best captain, but again, I think it's because Haaland is flagged. If Haaland's flag is removed, he probably is the standout captain. Interestingly, Salah only has 5.6 predicted points, so maybe not a player who is to be captain this week, but I'll leave that with you guys. We know Salah can perform in any fixture, yeah, lower than usual for Salah in terms of his predicted points there. So yeah, that is what my team is looking like. I think if we were to remove Bowen this week with Mbumo, which is definitely a possibility, yes, it doesn't really improve my team that much this game week because we have got the Arsenal fixture. But if we look forward to game week 14, for example, you know, Luton at home, game week 15, we've got Brighton away, game week 16, Sheffield United away, and game week 17, Aston Villa at home. Of course, I still would have an issue to deal with game week 18, which is why, because I want Haaland and I want Mbumo by like next game week at the latest, then I do need to improve this defense, this bench, somehow. And I think that is when players like Wood, players like Castagna are going to come into play. Like, I was looking through Castagna's, like, predicted points. They're actually pretty decent. So if we go back to here, I click on Castagna, you can see his predicted points: 3.9 against Wolves, 3.8 against Forest, 3.5 against West Ham, and 3.8 against Burnley. So it's the perfect matchup. It is exactly what I need, and I wouldn't have found him as an option if it wasn't for looking through Fantasy Football Hub and the predicted points, just to try and get an idea of what kinds of players might do okay in those particular game weeks. So yeah, again, massive shout out to Fantasy Football Hub for helping me with my FPL team, because I don't think I would be the rank I am currently without them, and they're really handy for just finding those little players that you didn't necessarily go to in your head naturally. Sometimes you need a little help to nudge you in the right direction of the kind of players that you might want. Yeah, and I'm really, really tempted by this Castagna pick, I have to say. But you guys are going to think I'm crazy for that. Let me know what you think. So that's going to be the end of today's video, guys. If you did enjoy this one, do drop a like and do subscribe if you are new around here. Don't forget to check out Fantasy Football Hub, link in the description to get your 30-day free trial. It's probably not going to happen again for a while to get this kind of deal, I'm telling you guys right now. Do check out fanprints.uk as well for all of your fantasy football gifts and merchandise needs. Again, link in the description. But aside from that, I'll see you tomorrow where we'll do the dreaded reveal of whether Bowen is going to be okay for Game Week 13 or not. Oh, I really need this information and I cannot wait to share it with you guys tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Watch another video if you want to, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.